I would like to introduce Ohad Idan, who is a Salesforce MVP. He is the founder CEO of Praxis, and he is also a community group leader. And I believe you've been an MVP since 2017, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, and you stole my slide, but that's okay.
All right, well, I'm not going to say anything else, so I'll turn it over to you if you want to introduce yourself further, and then we'll jump right in.
Yeah, no problem. So as Bill kindly said, I'm the founder and CEO of Praxis. We're a Salesforce consulting organization. Everything we do is around Salesforce. I have been in the ecosystem doing Salesforce things since 2010, so 11, almost 12 years now. So it's quite a while. I've been an MVP for the last 5 years. If nobody knows what the MVP program is, it's basically a community nomination program where people from within the community, whether it's local user groups or online communities, can nominate people who are contributing to the community either in many different ways by helping others or providing resource blogs, stuff like that. And you have to be continuously nominated by the community to be renewed every year. So, that is just to say I'm very active in the Salesforce community. I used to lead the New York City developer user group. Now I lead the Richmond, Virginia developer user group, presented in Dreamforces, presented in Salesforce World Tours and a bunch of other things. And I started my life as an admin on the Salesforce platform and then kind of grew into a developer on my own. So just to kind of get a sense in this call, if you can, and I hope that you have that on Zoom setting, are you guys able to kind of raise your hand if you have been doing Salesforce things for more than a year? Just to kind of get the sense of who we're talking with here. So I see Jade, Bill. You should have right under the screen the ability to kind of do hand raising or whatever. I don't remember how that looks.
Yeah, it's under reactions on the screen if folks see that.
Wonderful. So I see some hands, but not that many. So that tells me that many of you are new to the platform. So I wanted to kind of get the sense of who I'm talking to here, so we can obviously kind of make sure I speak in a language that will make sense to everybody on the call. So today's call, what I wanted to do is show you a little bit about some cool things that you can do with Salesforce Lightning. If you have been working with Salesforce any amount of time, you've probably learned about the Lightning experience. The Lightning experience was introduced, probably about 5 or 6 years ago now, which replaced what today we call Salesforce Classic. The idea was to introduce a modern user interface that is significantly more customizable and friendly to the user than what we called the Salesforce Classic. I can tell you that I was not an early adopter of Salesforce Lightning. I always wanted to adopt it, and every new release, as you probably know, Salesforce releases a new version 3 times a year. Every new release, I would pledge, okay, I'm going to start using Lightning on my day-to-day, and I would try it, switch to Lightning. I'll say, now I'm going to try to do everything Lightning. And typically after about a day, sometimes 2, I just give up and wouldn't do that. The start was a little rough. It took a long time for them to get to what we call feature parity with Classic, which means all the features in Classic were also in Lightning. But I guess for about the last 4 years, so about 2 years after they launched it, they kind of reached a point where, in my mind, was the turning point. Can start to use Lightning really in your day-to-day. And of course, today, 4 years later, it's significantly better than Classic in almost every possible way. And I wanted to show you some of the cool things you can do with it, because it may not be immediately intuitive how much you can customize with the Lightning user experience. So who here has ever created a Lightning page? And again, I'll ask you to kind of just raise your hands if you can. Okay, so some people have, which is great. That's exactly what I was hoping to hear. And depending on your experience, you may have seen or done different amount of things. So, when you start the Lightning, when you create a Lightning page for the first time, it will look something maybe like this. Can have a couple of tabs here in the section, and just to confirm, everybody can see my screen, right? Okay, you'll have maybe a couple of tabs here. You'll have, what we call the details section. You'll have maybe a few related lists on the side, on the bottom, depending on how you organize them. And you can argue this is better than what Classic was. Some people actually prefer still the Classic view compared to this, where you have like your details and then below all your related list. But this is already more customizable than what Classic ever was. However, you can ask yourself, is this user interface really going to make my users' lives easier, right? And especially when you get into things that are more complex, pages that have more data, you can start to think about ways that you can make your users' life better. So I'm going to walk us through a couple of different, or 3 different Lightning pages that I've created that are probably in order of complexity also. The first 2 are going to be pretty similar, and the third one is significantly more complex. So this is what we call a customer record, okay? It's a Lightning page. It maybe doesn't look that much different than what you've seen before, but you already see there's a few things different. First of all, we have our details here. We have a couple more tabs here, and we have what we call an accordion on the right side. Now this is a customer record, and so because our customers, and in this org, we actually manage all of our billing and invoicing all in Salesforce. Because that is all done here, I can look at things like what they owe us right now. How much is current, how much is 30 days past due, 60, 90. And this is done by simply taking a Salesforce report and embedding it within the Lightning page. Now, actually, Salesforce reports were embeddable even in Classic pages, but it would always have to be a part of the main section. It would be big, it would take a lot of room on the page and wouldn't be so friendly. But here I can put like the past due orders and just as easily expose what open orders this customer may have. So right away, I exposed information about this customer that wouldn't necessarily be available right here. And if we want to look in related lists, we can find these orders, but as immediately as somebody who cares about this account logs into the page, they can immediately see really visually what is going on with this customer. I don't know why this report is not loading right now, but you'll just have to trust me that it works. Beyond that, what I've done is we have a lot of information that we keep about our customers. And typically, we don't necessarily care about all of these pieces of information. When I log in, I may want to see stuff about who's responsible for that customer, their terms, their currency, customer class, all this different information we have about them that's more pertinent and more usually or frequently used. But other things that control how we use or how this customer interacts with us are things that we typically set and forget. So in order to not consume a lot of space on our page, I put them in this accordion. An accordion, unlike tabs, well, actually not very different, but unlike the page details, doesn't allow you to have more than one section open at a time. So if I click on this, now I can see some information. And every time I will only have one drawer in my accordion open. And I can control things around like how we ship to this customer, how we invoice to them, templates we use for documents, and things like this. But again, the idea is making a lot of information. And as you can see, there's a lot of information on this page available in a way that isn't overwhelming, that isn't opening the page and seeing this massive amount of fields, massive amount of scrollable, never-ending scrolling page, and putting the things that the user cares about front and center immediately as they load the page. And this is one of the things that Lightning is really good at letting us do, is really customize what is shown when the page loads, and then hide other things in other areas. For example, typically you'll have your related list. You'll click on a related tab, you expect to see a whole bunch of related lists. But what I've done here, I've actually organized them in sub-tabs. So we have addresses, we have contacts, we have companies that they work with, discounts, related customers, and so on, all in sub-tabs. And again, it's just about working with the users and figuring out what is a way that makes it easier for them. If I did not put them in tabs, all of these related lists might again create this kind of really long scrolling experience. And typically when somebody logs in, they're looking for something very specific. In our account history, we actually have just other related lists about, for example, orders that they have. So right now it looks like there's 3 orders, 2 of them are completed and 1 is shipped. So that's why open orders probably isn't showing anything. Shipment history information, invoices, payments, cash receipts, returns, and so on. So again, just organizing it in a way that makes sense to our customer. And this is, again, not necessarily this is the right way to do it all the time. So much so as working with our customer, asking what are the things that are important to you? How do you typically look at information? We came up with this kind of design for the page. I want to stop for a second and give you the opportunity to ask any questions that you have. And by all means, feel free to also interrupt me as I speak. Ask, point, whatever you want, or I'll try to stop as well. You can put it in the chat, or if you want, as long as we don't cause a ruckus, you can feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question. I'll give you about 15 seconds to do that while I take a sip.
Hello?
Hello, Andrew?
Hello, this is Andrew. Yes, hi. Question for you. I see your tabs, and I have created a Lightning page through the trailhead for military. So I'm familiar with everything you're saying. So I'm thinking in my head, if I'm supporting a customer, creating all the objects within a tab, okay, and the customer wants to create all these objects within a tab, but the object should be broken down into different tabs. How do you do that? Does the customer ultimately make the decision on what objects are in each tab, or do you collaborate with the customer to say, okay, this particular object should be separate from the tab that it's in now? Is my question making sense?
If I'm hearing you correctly, you're asking, how do you make the decision? Do you make the decision, or do you ask the customer to make the decision? And in reality, that really depends, right? Assuming you're a consultant, it depends on your relationship with the customer. And even for us, different customers have different levels of expertise. Some customers will completely rely on us and say, put something that makes sense for me. And then they'll, of course, come back and say, well, yeah, that was great, but I need you to move this here. We don't care about that. Why is this together? Why is this separate? And so on, right? So some customers will literally just say, hey, give us something. We trust your experience. We trust your judgment, and give us something, and then we'll work from that. And some other customers will come and say, hey, we needed to create a page. We needed to show this. We want it to be divided in this way. And there's obviously customers that are in the middle, right? Where you kind of meet with them first and you say, okay, we're going to create, this is a page that obviously has a lot of information, right? More than maybe your average case or account. And so, we can talk with them and say, hey, what's important for you to see, right? The reality is this is exactly the opportunity for us as consultants, or for you as consultant, if that's what you're doing, to show that you have, the right understanding. And one of the things that I see a lot of times when we go to other customers is we see a Lightning page that just has a never-ending scrolling page, right?
Right. Yeah.
And the reality is people don't scroll, right? So that means that people either don't know how to find what they need, they don't even know that it's there. More importantly, people don't populate information that is very important. Right. Because they don't even know that it's there. So the question always is, what needs to be shown? How do we make sure that, the people who actually use this page have a easy way to find the information they need, and have really easy cue to understand what they need to populate when they interact with the page in a specific use case.
I see. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Really good questions, though. Thank you, Andrew. Any other questions? Darren is raising his hand. You're muted, though, Darren.
Ohad, thank you for speaking with us today. I got a question about that right pane. So what I'm trying to do is getting my mind right for what I'm studying to what it looks like as a user, because I'm used to studying in admin mode all the time, right? So your account receivable, it's in a Lightning page. Is that a field you brought in to get that chart, or is that a component? What is that? How did you get that there and then the chart?
Let's look at the page. Let's edit this page. Sorry. Actually, the first thing we can do is you can see this is a report.
Yes.
If I click on this, I can view this report.
Okay.
And it's a simple Salesforce report. I'm not going to get really deep into how you put a report on this, but you need to have a report that has the account or the customer or the record ID as one of the grouping in the report. And once you do that, you can add a report to a page, and it will automatically be filtered for the record that you're looking at. So when you create the report, you create it with a customer filter on it. In this case, this is customer master ID, and by dragging it, Salesforce will automatically populate the filter on the page. And how did we do this? Sorry. Got to go back to the page, and I'll click on edit page. So the first part is, how did I write accounts receivable? When you create an accordion, you can name every drawer in the accordion. You can name it whatever you want. You can name it Ohad's tab. You can call it Darren, right? And you see that's the accordion component right here. When I drag it to here above this one, it by default has 2 drawers in it. I can then say, I want to rename this one to either one of the predefined names or put a custom name. Come on.
Okay, so that's just your label.
That's just a, dude, what's going on here? Let's try this again.
It's all right, close enough.
I can put, custom and then put Darren here. And now we have a drawer named Darren. And then inside this drawer, you can put whatever you want, be it other components, be it fields, right? You can put them right here. Now, you may know that in order to put fields on a Lightning page, you have to use something called dynamic pages, which is a relatively new feature, about a little over a year old. And at this point, dynamic pages do not work yet on standard objects. So account, cases, opportunities do not have dynamic pages. Custom objects, absolutely. Any other question, Darren? Does that answer your question?
Perfect. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Wonderful. Okay. Any other questions about this page?
We did have a question in the chat.
Please.
So using the dynamic interaction features, the sub-tabs are working, I believe. Is that right? And Prabharti, if you want to come off mute, if you want to add to that, please feel free.
Yeah, that is what he already updated. So it's working used on that feature, dynamic interaction, I believe.
So that's actually a good question. And I was just about to get to dynamic actions. So we have dynamic pages, which allow us to take this one big section of details that's taken from the old page layout, and there's a massive array of fields, and break it into the ability to put some fields here and some fields here and so on. That's dynamic pages. The other thing is dynamic actions, and dynamic actions allow us to have these buttons be dynamic. So that's actually the other thing I wanted to show, is that we have buttons here.
Email equals.
Somebody should mute themselves. Thank you. We have buttons here that may not show for every single user. So for example, rename customer is a button that is only available for certain users in the system. And how did we do this? Is using dynamic actions. Okay, using dynamic actions, when I click on the highlight panel on the top here, I can actually put conditional visibility on a button. So I can say this button should only be visible if certain criteria are met. And in this one, I'm using something called a custom permission to say the user must have this allow rename Salesforce account from customer master to be equal to true. Okay, and this is called again dynamic actions. Parvati, is that what you wanted to know?
Yeah, I just got confused that term. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, two terms. Dynamic pages are the ability to take the details section and break it into multiple page areas. Now, the great thing with dynamic pages is when you put those fields in different areas, every single field becomes its own mini Lightning component. So even fields can have what we call the conditional visibility. Only show this field if the user have this permission. Only show this field if the record is in that state, right? So for example, you only want to show fields that are required to collect when an opportunity is closed. When the opportunity is closed, you can say only show this field when the opportunity stage equals closed. Again, opportunity won't work because dynamic pages don't work on standard objects yet, but just by way of example. And again, it's just a way to say, I don't need to see these records until the record gets to this stage, and only then show me. And maybe at that point, I don't even need to show other fields, right? So it's always thinking about what makes sense to show instead of just a block of fields that show everything all the time. Okay. Any other questions on this page? Okay, good. So let's move to the next page I wanted to show you. So this was a customer record. The next thing I want to show you is a vendor page. So here's a vendor page, fictitious vendor, this company, Praxis Solutions. And what I want to show right away is that this should seem very similar to you, to what we did with the customer, right? Same thing, we have our tabs here, we have our accordion on the right, and there's a report right here on the side. I go to the vendor, it looks very similar. And that is extremely intentional, right? What we wanted to do is create call it a design language or a kind of design approach where people can know that if I go to a vendor, if I go to a customer, I know where to find things, right? I don't need to learn the vendor page and where things are hidden separately from working with a customer page, right? Now, it doesn't necessarily make sense in every use case, but vendors and customers are close enough in nature. Those are entities we are doing business with that we wanted to really create this really kind of shared experience. And you see that, we kind of, again, have this related stuff here, we have the history here. You even have another subtab below this second subtab because we had so much information we wanted to keep separated and easily accessible right here. And we even use chatter here because they use chatter to communicate. And the same thing, open purchase orders, past due payables for this vendor, and matching just means that it's a process, doesn't matter, counting process. One of the things you can see that is different here is that on this page, we decided to put the contacts front and center right in the center of the details page. I'm sorry, my 3-year-old daughter is smashing my door. 1 second. I'm on a phone call. You can say hi to everybody here, and then I need to finish.
Hi.
Everybody's saying hi to you. Are you excited? Okay, go back to mama. Okay, but I can't help you right now. I'm sorry, guys.
I think Ohad is having a dynamic interaction right now.
Thank you. So yes, kids, where were we? So when you raise a child, oh no, that's not what we're here to talk about today, right? Yeah, so
what about the related list in the middle?
Yeah, we put a related list because one of the feedback from the customer as we were building this page is, hey, when we go into a vendor, we want to typically contact somebody. So we really want the contacts to be front and center right there when we log in, right? It might be when somebody from the vendor calls us, or it might be when we need to call them, whatever it may be, there's something that's right here, right? So again, not much more to show on this page, just to show how we're able to take the same kind of design language in lieu of other word and just create a very similar experience for our users in both types of pages.
Oh, one question in chat. So besides many comments about your daughter being cute, one question was, can you show what the tab, subtab, subtab looks like on edit?
Absolutely. So that's one of the great things about Lightning is you can put components and components and components. For most part, not every component can contain other components, but those organization ones can, which is great. All right, so all I had to do is take like a tab and put it here. And then in one of the tabs, I put another tab. And then in this, I can put another tab, and we can really do tabception right here, right? So we can create, this really complex. Obviously, you don't want to bury things so deep that people have to dive in 7 tabs deep. But in this case, it kind of made sense because, again, there's like in the account history, we want to see the purchase acquisitions versus purchase orders versus accounts payable. We didn't want to have like 25 tabs right here horizontal. So under the requisitions, we have inventory acquisitions, converted acquisitions. In edit mode, it's kind of hidden because it's a bit narrower, and then on purchase orders, we have the headers, we have the lines, we have receipts, we have returns. So we just wanted to organize it in a way that's very logical in lieu of other term. So, obviously, when you look at it here, it looks a little bit better. And all of them have other information. Okay. Okay, this brings me to another topic. Look at this beautiful related list. You have all used related lists in the past, I assume. Does anything look special about this related list or different? Have you ever seen a filter on a related list? I'll give you a hint. The short answer is no. In fact, there's an upcoming feature, I think scheduled for next release, but don't hold me on that will allow you to filter related lists, but we already have this. We didn't have to create anything special for this. What we did is we used the wonderful Salesforce ecosystem. So there are myriads of other components out there that you can get and install in your org. Some of them are going to be open source, meaning you can literally get the source code, even change it if you have developer code experience. Some of them are going to be closed source, means you can install them, but you can't change anything in them. And some of them are going to be paid. But there's a lot of them out there. This one specifically is something called Enhanced Lightning Grid. If I Google that, I see it on the App Exchange. So hopefully you guys are all aware of what the App Exchange is where you can get new things that plug into your Salesforce org and allow you to do new things in it. And this one is free. Magic word, we all love free. It's also developed by a group called Salesforce Labs. Has anybody heard of Salesforce Labs here? Some people raise hands, great. Some don't have camera, so I assume they raise their hands. Salesforce Labs is in essence just an internal organization in Salesforce that collects projects that internal employees at Salesforce have developed and they want to make public. So if somebody at Salesforce used some of their free time to build a cool enhanced lightning grid, they can go into the Salesforce Labs org and say, hey, we want to make this public. They have to go through security review and a bunch of other things, and they can then make it available on the App Exchange. There's a whole myriad of apps by Salesforce Labs available on the App Exchange. And not all of them are open source, but this one specifically is. You can even find the link to the GitHub right here, the GitHub repo. This is a phenomenal application. I love it. It does a lot more than just the filter I just showed you. Okay, so this is kind of where I wanted to go next, and that is to say you can customize your Lightning pages to the nth degree. There's a million ways you can customize them. What I've shown you so far here is mostly just using the standard tools. But now you can actually take new tools like this one and make it more customizable even. So let's take a look at another page. This is something we call a work order. A work order is used when we want to track manufacturing of an item, okay? And this page has a lot going on here. I'm not even going to be able to walk you through everything that's going on here. But you can start and see this. We use a path to visually indicate where this work order is. Is it planned? Is it firm? Is it allocated? Is it ready for activity? Have we picked it? Already received some components on it? Completely received and closed it. Somebody opens it, immediately they see where this work order is. A lot of information here hidden in tabs as well. Some of it is related list and some of it is fields. And then we have this bottom section of the page as well. So you can see another related list here, another related list here, beautiful stuff, all great. This is where I wanted to show you something really cool. Under here, I have a tab with another set of sub tabs, right? Like we've seen before. What you see here right below, this section right here, is actually a custom Lightning component we built. But then below that, you have another accordion with 3 drawers in it. Very similar to what we had before, just it's now in the main section of the page and has lists in them. And the same enhanced Lightning grid allows us to put some details here, but here's another magical thing. Now I can put beautiful looking buttons here. And these buttons can change if I select something. So I can actually say, I want to pick these 2 lines that I selected, or only pick this line. I can override, I can delete, I can do a bunch of different things right from here. Or if nothing is selected, I can delete all the unprocessed pick list right from here. And if I click on that, this can launch a flow right here. So we have really, really customized this page at this point. And we've allowed the user to do a lot of different interactions from this page. I can tell you, before we created this Lightning page, interacting with work orders was done on a really old Visualforce, which is before Lightning. We created Visualforce pages to do something that's more complex than a page layout. But this Visualforce was extremely hard to customize, and more importantly, it wasn't really effective or efficient. And so when somebody needed to process a work order in this customer org, they would typically have to open dozens of tabs to find information. If they need to decide which lot they need to assign to this material, they would need to open another tab to search lots available for this item, and then be able to come back in here and enter the lot. If they need to pick, they would need to find out first which locations are available. There would be a lot of like opening other tabs, looking for information. Our goal was to centralize this page and make it so efficient that they never have to exit this window for all of the different activities they need to do in the manufacturing process. So that is assigning lots, issuing material, recording waste, picking material from the inventory and staging it for this work order, looking at all the transactions that were completed, the operations that need to be completed in this work order, and then record time, record quantities completed through this operation. All of this can be done through here, and a lot of it is done through flows.
One quick question on that. The buttons that you had that actually launched the flow, how are they created? Is that part of that Salesforce Labs component, or is that something different?
Great question. So I'm going to do a shameless plug here. So the Enhanced Lightning Grid does have the ability to build buttons and put them in here right out of the box, but it does not allow you to launch a flow. It has a very, very limited set of activities you can do. You can create a record using a quick action. You can update a record using a quick action. You can delete a record. It's pretty much it. Not that much more that you can do with it. Maybe a handful more things. But we really like this component and wanted to make sure that you can launch flows from it. So we actually developed an extension package that you can also install. We made it open source and installable. And you can see a little picture of me here on the bottom doing a demo of this, of how we use this. But we call this the Flow Event Launcher. And in essence, we explain to you how you can configure, install this package, and then configure the Enhanced Lightning Grid to launch flows using this little component that we created. And it really walks you through all the steps you have to do. It's a little more technical than just drag and drop, but it's not super difficult that somebody can just follow this and figure it out very easily. But the ability to actually put the buttons on this is part of the enhanced lightning grid. In fact, I'll show you how easy it is. So to define a sortable data grid, you actually have to predefine them before you put them on the page. And here's one of them, remaining pick lists to pick. That's exactly the one we were looking at here. This guy, remaining pick lists to pick. So when you look at it, where did I have it? Right here. You define some of the object relationship. Again, a lot of information. If this looks threatening, something that if you decide to sit and study for, play with this for a few hours, you'll figure it out. You can then decide what fields you want to show in the related list. So we picked, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 fields. And you can see them right here. You can put the order. You can even override the label if you want it to say something different. You can easily find the fields right from here that are on this object. One of the cool things that you can do with this that you cannot do with standard related list is, let's say I'm looking at a case, and the case has a lookup to the account, and I want to, in my related list, show something from the account, like the account owner or the stock symbol or something like that. I have the ability to actually take a related, lookup field, and then go and get fields from that. And even further, I can go from there, from the created to the user, and then get things like, this user's email. So you can do a lot more with this than with standard related lists. But then below that, we have these actions, and I can create a new action. You have to define a bunch of different things, but really the action type, you say, do we want it as a row action, as a list action, a row button, a list button, or a list multi-select? So this is, let's see, do I have what did I see? This is a row button. You can put an icon if you want, you can not. And this is a list button, and this is a list multi-select. When you select, it will automatically show the multi-select ones. And then in it, this is where things get a little bit more complicated. But again, if you follow the instruction, it's not rocket science. This is where we have to tell it what to do. So which flow are we going to launch? What variable are we going to pass into it? What fields and object and stuff like that. If you ever go into this demo will walk you through every single step of this. And again, it's written in step-by-step as well. Okay, so again, my goal today was to kind of really show you how much you can do with Lightning Experience, more than what you just get maybe to learn on Trailhead, right? You can take these basic things that Salesforce gives you and build really compelling pages. And by the way, this page looks pretty clean, I think, but if you look at edit, you'll see that there's a lot more happening here. Maybe the page loads. So actually, you see that we have this, related list, this tab in the top, and then tab here. But then there's another set of tabs here and another set of tabs. But you can see that they are conditionally visible. This orange eye here tells us that they won't always show. They will only show in certain scenarios. We realized that some types of work orders require different tabs. And you cannot make individual tabs conditionally visible. I can't say only show this tab if certain criteria is met. So instead, we just put a whole set of tabs, and we made this whole set conditionally visible, only show this one, come on, if the work order type is this type and it's not this type and so on, and only show this if it's the other type, and only show this if it's a whole other one. So these ones are configured to be mutually exclusive, only show one at a time. They'll ever only show one, but it doesn't have to be. You can say, show this if this work order, and show if this work order and it's in this stage, right? In this stage in the path, for example. So there's a lot more happening. This page is days and days of work, probably weeks of work actually, Not so much because it took weeks to build it, but we actually had a lot of working sessions with the customer to optimize everything to the exact things that they wanted to do. So again, my goal today was to show you how you can take this idea of Lightning page and build anything from a super simple page to something that is just a lot more customized, in the sense of we can control where things are on the page, what is front and center. And when you build a page, you always have to think yourself, what does the user need to see and when, right? This is where conditional visibility can become really helpful. Because the worst thing you can do is just have one big field, one big page with a lot of fields in it, because you'll find that people just don't use it. And people are tired of scrolling. People are tired of having to search, different sections and things like this. If you can make it easy for the user to find what they need quickly, they'll use it more frequently, right? So I wanted to show you, this general approach, some of what you can do with only standard Salesforce stuff, and then some of what you can do with, just a Lightning application, Lightning component that I installed from the App Exchange, and of course something that is completely customized. This has, custom components we created, like this one, even this one. Operations, when we click on the book time in quantity, it opens a flow, and inside the flow there's a screen with a Lightning component that we create. This isn't a standard thing, right? So this page has tremendous amount happening, and again, just like before, the buttons have a lot of conditional visibility. We don't need to delete, we can't delete component before we extract component. But what we extract, the button to extract component is no longer visible, only the button to delete. You can't generate pick list before you extracted component. You can't delete operations before you extracted them. You can't extract before you delete them. A lot of different conditions on the buttons to show. Again, if I went into the edit, you'll see there's probably about 15 or 16 buttons on this page, but they're all conditional visibility. Only show the ones that make sense based on where this work order is in its life right now.
So one question in the chat, and I think it was a few minutes ago, so I'm not sure which screen you're on, but Bill, maybe you can elaborate here.
This guy.
Yeah, so can you control the visibility of the lower pane when selecting a tab in the upper pane?
So Ohad,
yes.
My use case is just at a simple level. Let's say I just have a standard details tab and a related list tab. Just a real simple group of tabs. And when I click on the details tab, I want to see my details pane, but below that, I want to see a related records or related record pane. And I want it visible when I'm selecting the details tab, but I don't want it visible when I go over to the related tab.
Yeah, so all you need to make sure is when you drag your related list, right here. Let's edit it. And here's a details tab, a related tab, right? Very similar scenario to what you have. And when I take, let's say, a single related list, I can put it in a couple different places. I can put it right here at the bottom of my details tab, or I can put it at the bottom of my page. If I put it at the bottom of my page, it's going to show regardless of which tab I'm on, right? Because it's underneath.
So you can't control that
tab. This can still be conditional visibility, but it's not what you're looking. You're not looking to control it based on this. However, if I put it inside my detail tab at the bottom, now it will show at the bottom of my details, but when I go to related, it's no longer visible.
Perfect.
Because I put it inside this container that is part of the tab. Right, so it's all about where I place it. Do I place it inside my tab container or outside in my page container?
Perfect.
Now you could put it underneath and still have condition visibility, only show it when certain criteria are met, but then the condition visibility can be based on where you are on the page.
Right.
It will be based on permissions, based on form factor. Is the user on a laptop or a desktop? I'm sorry, desktop or mobile. And it can be based on permissions, but it cannot be based on like which tab I'm on.
Got it.
Okay.
Thanks. Perfect.
Good question. Any other questions?
Just one question from my side, that you are creating, I think, if I understood the thing properly, just like we create the community cloud templates. I mean, you have created the lot many templates to show in different that we can do. I mean, component inside the component, right? So, I mean, when you are talking about the footer, you are putting that particular component. That is, that means you are saying that when we are creating a component, a footer component, that is always going to be visible. I mean, we cannot do even we can do the conditional rendering of that one also in case of the footer.
You can, yes, absolutely. But also remember, this is not community. This is inside Salesforce, right?
Yeah. Anyway, so you practically, if I understand the subject matter correctly, practically the component layout. I mean, the way we develop the. I mean, hope it's all these are like Lightning Web components.
Yeah, there's some other things you can't do on community pages, and some things you can do in some slightly different way, like things like audiences and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But it's not a full parity to Lightning page here and the community Lightning page. So there's definitely some gaps, and it's been a little while since I worked on a community, a few months. So I know there are some quirks, and it took us a little bit more work to do some of the things that we could easily do in Lightning, like inside Salesforce. But for the most part, I mean, it might require some more work, but you should be able to accomplish pretty much the same behavior.
Yeah. So all these components, if I understood it correctly, you used the LWC, right? I mean,
yes, absolutely. These are all LWC. Some you can also use Aura components, by the way.
Yeah, right.
But yeah. And then I see a question from Phil. Hi, Phil. And you asked how many partners bring ERP capability to customers. From my limited experience, seems pretty rare. First of all, I'm excited to see that you are familiar with ERP and all that. There aren't many ERP providers that are native to Salesforce. So if you go here and you type ERP, we actually work with a couple of ERPs on the platform. That's part of our specialty, actually. And we work specifically with Rootstock and with Financial Force ERP. But there's a handful more. Not everybody here that comes back is an actual ERP. Like Accounting Seed has an inventory and sales order module. Do you want to call it ERP? You'd be pushing it, but it has some rudimentary ERP capabilities. Ascent is pretty good. Rootstock is probably the most complete ERP on the platform. And a couple of them are actually integrations, like Sage ERP integration for Salesforce, right? Or Intact, they have integration with Salesforce, not actually native to the platform. But interestingly enough, there are ERP that live on the platform, and we actually work with some really large enterprise customers that use their ERP inside Salesforce, and it has its challenges, but it's also at the same time game changer, because the efficiency that you can get, the ease of customization, how you can tie in suddenly sales with operations and distribution and all these other aspects of manufacturing. It's just it's a fascinating world to be alive.
It makes a ton of sense. So the relationship you have with these companies you just discussed, you provide.
We're an SI. We're a system integrator, so we implement them, customize them, train. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Yeah, I'd like to learn more about that sometime. Thanks.
Feel free to reach out.
Thanks.
I'm always happy to talk, especially about ERP.
Great, we'll do it.
Awesome. Any other questions? Bill asking.
Yeah, I was going to say one selfish question from Bill, which is me. So a challenge I've seen customers have is the limitation of only displaying fields in 2 columns. Are you aware of any kind of components that would allow more than 2 columns, similar to what you would see in Lightning components with like Lightning layouts or layout items, that kind of thing?
So the short answer is no. not right now, but yeah, the short answer is no, really.
Yeah.
Some way you can do that actually is by embedding, and that's actually one other thing I forgot to mention, but you can embed a flow on the page, right? And in a flow, you can actually have on a screen, you can have a section area that has 4 sections. And so you just put the fields there and you embed that flow on the screen and it looks like just anything else, right? And actually other thing I wanted to say is, we talked about this little related list on the bottom here. This is actually not a related list. Everything here below the component section, this is all a flow. And I have a table inside my flow, and I can select things and I can assign lots. And because it's a flow, it goes to the next screen and it all happens right in here. Right, so I can interact with my things right here, and this is where you kind of allow the user to, okay, I want to assign a lot, which lots are available, and how many do I want to assign? And when I do this, I get a cute little confetti component, and then we're back to our table. But this is a little bit more advanced stuff. If you are interested, and you are curious about flows, I would highly recommend Unofficial Salesforce.
Yeah, what I just want to know, I mean, because I was talking to the other day that developing flow, I mean, you are a programmer. So what's your take on the flow? Have you, because I know Dan Appleman and Keir Bowden, they talked about the performance-wise, the flow, because I can see it very, I mean, scary to create a flow screen, subflow, flow, subflow, flow. Do you think that the flow is much more faster than writing the Apex? I mean, from that aspect with the platform. So, what's your take on that?
It's a really loaded question. So, flow is from performance perspective. Flow will never be as performant as code, right? Because that's just the nature of abstracted languages, and it's a visual abstracted language. So they need to be able to handle a bunch of different ways that people are using it, and there's just a lot more framework behind it. So that by definition adds processing and slows things down a little bit.
Absolutely.
Having said that, flow has been tremendously optimized. I think it's a great tool for some things, right? Screen flows, because you don't have to typically worry about massive processing and all that. I think screen flows are phenomenal ways for admins or people without programming experience per se, to create really compelling and customized user experiences. And a lot of what I've done here, an admin could do. So there's definitely a room and place for flows. I love to use flows for simple things, because the pace, I can create it much faster than I would have to. And again, I can reuse components from Unofficial Salesforce and stuff like that, or from the community.
Right. I agreed. Yeah, agreed.
But if you talk about like flows for automation, record triggered flows and stuff like that, again, flows will never be as fast as code, but they are pretty fast right now. Again, super optimized over time. You can do a lot of great things with flows without having to write a line of code. And today you have before update, before insert, after update, after insert, after delete flows. So you can really do a lot with flow without writing code. Now, does it mean that flow replaces code? Absolutely no.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Especially in an environment where we have an ERP inside Salesforce. ERPs are by nature really heavy processing beasts. They do a lot of processing. They consume a lot of resources in what Salesforce gives us. So in many cases, especially with automation, we have to be extremely performant, extremely cognizant of writing code that is best practices, that it takes a lot of this performance consideration into account.
So So my take is that you are finding it optimal because you are using the flow with this particular component. That
Yep.
then I can take it from you the answer that in this particular use case you find it flow is more usable than the code.
Yeah, it was just faster for us to
Yeah,
develop in this case.
great.
It met all our needs, so there was no reason not to use that.
I really appreciate.
Thank you. Any other questions? I know we're at time, basically.
All right. Well, if
If
anybody
you
has
have any other
other
questions, yeah.
Nope. Good. Yeah, I was gonna say, if you have any other questions, obviously you can shoot us an email. You can always post a question in the FedForce community or through our LinkedIn group, or otherwise bring your question to office hours next week, and hopefully we can answer it there as well.
Awesome.
So
and feel
with
free
that,
to reach out to me as well. My Twitter is right on the page.
Sure.
awesome.
Always happy
Well,
to chat.
Ohad, I really appreciate your time today. This was a great presentation, and I hope we
Pleasure.
can have you back in the future. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Have a
All right,
wonderful
everyone.
day, guys.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great weekend all. Hope to see you next week.
Bye.
Have a nice weekend. Bye. Take care. Bye.